On my end. And we should be good. All right, we are live. Welcome, fiends, to Handle with Scare, presented by the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. We are a horror movie podcast discussing the phobias that these films emphasize. I am your host, Emily Drunk, and with me tonight, as always, are my co-hosts, Hadley Hooch and John. And guys, here we are, smack dab in the middle of aquaphobia. And, tonight, really, we have a full house tonight, much like in the movie that we will be reviewing later on, which was John's selection. So why don't we introduce who we got here?
Sure. Ladies first.
Hi, everybody. I'm Morticia Monroe. How are you?
It's been a busy night.
So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
And you really love horror movies?
Love horror, obsessed about it since I was a kid, yes.
And you would classify yourself as goth?
Yeah, well, an old retired goth.
Punk rock goth?
Yeah, always a goth. Yeah, once a goth, always a goth. It's in there.
It's in there. I love
it.
In
the blood.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have one of my Twisted Tuesday regulars joining us tonight. So, Grindhouse, nice to see you. Nice to have you on finally.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, I kind of call myself the HPV of podcasting because I'm kind of showing up everywhere. You don't know you have me until you look down and go, oh, there he is. Yeah, so great to be here. This is going to be really fun. This is a really good film we're going to talk about, and I'm excited to jaw jack about it.
Absolutely. So for those that don't know, we've been doing aquaphobia throughout the entirety of June. This is going to be our first supersized phobia, which we'll be also doing throughout all of July. So still an entire month of this to go. Each of us still having another pick after this. But just a couple of general podcast reminders on the watch party front. We've been streaming on Stream Lounge on Mondays and Thursdays for watch parties. And, Stream Launch is something that we've been using for a couple of months now. And we just had our Screams of Pride event where we raised over $1,400 for the Trevor Project this past weekend, which was a fantastic result, well over our goal. We actually had Lloyd Kaufman on for a screening of Poultry Guys for one of our screenings, which was fantastic. Setup took a little bit of time, but, we got Uncle Lloyd on the internet after some dire attempts. But we've been doing watch parties there for a while now, and throughout July, we'll be doing Christmas in July for Saturdays and Sundays throughout the month. So if you're looking to join us for any of those nights, feel free to reach out to me. And if you need any help getting set up on Stream Lounge, I will be sure to help you on that front. But, outside of that, of course, we've been talking aquaphobia movies. Last week, we saw just how good a movie can be revolving around one individual gore gag in Aquaslash. Turns out it was a pretty mixed bag for a lot of us. But, it's always interesting when we could sit down, discuss a movie, and basically have the episode be just as long as the movie itself. And, that was one of those movies that I still cackle about because the gore gag in itself, absolutely fantastic, but you got a lot of like the high school dramedy Porky's aspects of the movie as well. But tonight we have a little getaway. So John, why don't you go ahead and introduce what film we'll be discussing?
So I had to pick The Beach as another movie that I was wanting to watch again that I had watched a while ago back, I think when it probably initially came out, and really liked it. Deals with topics that I really like, which is sort of the unusual possibilities for different life forms that we're kind of discovering in these weird locations like volcanic vents under the ocean kind of thing, and finding these really unusual new life forms, which this movie kind of deals with. There's actually a lot of discussion in the movie about those kinds of topics from the one character who is a biologist, I think, or something, or that's
something along those lines, yeah.
College course, and has some good kind of psychedelic imagery. Just to kind of generally talk about it, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but yeah, no, and it's a good movie. It kind of bears rewatching because it doesn't really, explain everything to you, the sequence of events and what happens. Kind of, you have to sort of figure out what's happening as it's happening, kind of movie, which is fun. So yeah, I don't want to give too much away before we start.
No, I enjoyed it too, but it's so interesting because it starts off. I mean, the pacing is great; it's fine, but like the setup of the beach house, and it's kind of boring and it's kind of awkward, and you're like, ugh. And then it picks up hard, and so I know I really enjoyed it as well. How about you, lady? What'd you think?
Yeah, it did start out where I was a little bit distracted, and I do gauge movies by how much it can suck me in since I'm a little ADHD, and so I never really can focus on a movie unless it grabs me right away, right? Mm-hmm. So I have to try to invest myself in it, like give it a minute. So the awkwardness of them being, at the house, and then randomly these strangers are staying there too, and they're all like, yay, let's have dinner together, I thought was weird. I'm like, I would never, I would have gotten a hotel, but like whatever. But then when it hits you hard, like Holly says, then you're like invested. What the hell's happening? Where are they going with this?
The very first taste of it that you get, of course, is that body horror with the removing the worm from the foot.
Oh Lord, sweet Jesus!
That was awesome.
My fiance couldn't watch. He actually wouldn't watch.
What?
No, he turned his head like a little kid. Yeah, he was like, he said, nope, I have bad dreams about worms, can't do it. And then I just was groaning and making sounds next to him. You gotta look at it.
You gotta look. What about you guys? You guys love it?
Yeah, well, this is one that I had actually seen at Chattanooga Film Festival when they did like their online platform. So this was like after it debuted at Film Fest or Fantastic Fest, which is where it initially debuted, and like kind of like in between when it got picked up by Shudder, exclusive like streaming wise, later in that year. So this is my first time watching it since then, and not often that I actually get to like re-review a show on the podcast, because we kind of did like a roundup for CFF at the time, like really early on. But I just remember like seeing a lot of like the cosmic elements that are introduced in this, and really enjoying the fact that her major is really tied well into the story, and what she's doing actually perfectly fits like who she is as a character and what she's studying. And, outside of that, it's just the fact that I know a lot of people, at least a lot of the reviews, really panned this movie, and I didn't agree with a lot of things that they were saying. I was looking at a lot of the reviews. A lot of them were like 1-star reviews when you're searching online, which is fantastic, which is really weird. But obviously horror as a genre is very subjective, and this is one of those movies that has really divided quite a few people.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think John is right when he talks about the rewatch factor on this movie. So I've watched it now 3 times. Once probably 6 or 8 weeks ago, it came up, like it was like, oh, I'm not watching anything, so I'll watch it. And then I watched it last night with you guys, and then I watched it again tonight, just so I was semi-prepared for this and didn't make an ass out of myself. Dedication. And the interesting part was by the third watch, my notes and my ideas on the movie completely changed, and some of the things that I thought the first time I saw it were happening, to the last time I saw it, it's very, very different. And I've got some interesting notes and some things that we can talk about later, obviously. But yeah, to say that this movie was panned by critics, I'm right there with you. I don't get it. I will admit that this movie is like getting on a roller coaster, and you have to go up 75 miles before you get over the hump. And the hump doesn't feel all that long, and then you're off the ride and you're just like, what happened? But the build up itself is, I think, worth it.
Right.
And the delivery is so fast and so chaotic, and it hits you so hard that it's a movie that I would get off, or a ride that I would get off, and I would get back in line and get on it again because it was that good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. When I was rewatching it, one of the things that was sort of interesting to me about the beginning of the movie before things kick off is the sort of weird choice in the story to have it be where the young couple goes to the house and there's an older couple already there, and then there's this whole kind of awkward interaction and them hanging out together. And I was thinking, this is such a interesting, weird choice, because in a more typical movie, this would have been two college couples who were all friends going to the place together, and then this stuff happens, but they chose to have this sort of awkward situation happen.
It was an interesting choice. I mean, on the one hand, it sort of was needed to have somebody there that was already there for a couple of days, so that the effects of the sea monsters were more progressed and pronounced in them, and then you can have that difference. But yeah, like it made for like an awkward first like 20 minutes where it's like, man, this vacation sucks. And like the couple's having like, not a great time either. So it's like, and everything's gray and mayo. I don't know, I just thought a lot about mayonnaise.
You know what I think they do that for though, is a good director is building up your emotions. Mm-hmm. So once you get into the awkwardness, you're already annoyed, right? Like this is awkward. Then when they're fighting and you wonder why the girl's even with the guy who's kind of a dick, you're like, why are they there together? Why is she with that guy? That intensified when she was trying to save him, later. Like why does she keep trying to save him? Why are they with this weird older couple? The lady's depressed. She starts to be on edge like immediately, and I think a good director builds up that weird emotion, right?
That's great.
Because then when it gets scary and chaotic, you are, like you said, you got off the ride, it ended, you don't know what the fuck just happened. And I want to do it again, though, and try it again.
Yeah, it had a very Circle of Life feel to it for me. The one kid, Randall, was talking about, what are we doing here? What's the point? Why do we go out and get a job and do those things? And the other couple were sort of, like, I got the vibe that, like, she probably had Alzheimer's or something like that. But then by the third time I watched it, I also got the vibe that there might have been something wrong with him, too. And that their beach weekend might have been their last weekend for the two of them, period. So it was kind of coming full circle for me and watching it and just being like I understand the thought, like, what do we do all this for? What's the point? And they kind of like were like here's the point. I mean, and the chaos that ensues is like almost a metaphor for life, right? And it's just, that's what happens. Life is chaos. Life is things that you can't predict and things that are happening that you can't control. But the goal in the end is to get through it for as long as you can and make it as good as you can, knowing that in the end,
I have a question.
The end is the end.
I have a question about that, because I've only seen it once. I just watched it about a day and a half ago, so it's fresh in my mind, but I haven't watched it again. That makes me think I would love to hear what everyone else thinks about the end, because I wasn't sure about the end. I didn't love the end, but now that you have this idea about it being full circle, now looking at it in that lens, it makes a little more sense when she says, don't be afraid.
It's just inevitable.
Right? Like, don't be afraid. Now, that had a little bit of a different meaning now the way you said it. I'm thinking that we're all going to die from this like alien life force that we've inhaled or whatever.
It could just be a
but now that
like
he
the
says
afterlife,
that, right? Maybe it's the afterlife or chaos in general.
Yeah, and I don't want to jump ahead too much to the end yet either, but I kind of felt like that was sort of the like, and yeah, like we gotta work our way there. But like, I feel like that ending thing was also her saying, "Don't be afraid." Is that I feel like this was more like this was an event that was sort of triggering like a mutation / evolution in humans, and that she was basically transforming like everyone who gets sort of infected, or if you want to call it that, is sort of transforming into a new life form or like a altered life form. And she's sort of saying like, I felt like she was sort of saying, just go with it. Like this, like, and like what you were saying about where it's just kind of like, this life is chaos, things are going to change, and just kind of go with it. And I don't want to, I feel like we always try to kind of go through an order with these movies, but like, I can't help jumping around a little bit, but in that, talking about that, like that's, I felt like very much like that the guy, the older guy, the husband. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree also that it felt like there was something already wrong with their relationship, but that he really like transformed because he was the one who went and just basically went into the ocean.
Oh, that was a great scene too. Just like slow and steady, loses the race. You know?
It's a great shot.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that was a great scene.
Going
That was
back
a
to the
great
beginning
scene.
real quick. I agree. I think that the initial kind of weirdness and slowness is the good kind of storytelling and directing, where it's like we need to create some kind of conflict and interesting stuff to happen before the craziness breaks out, so we can have this kind of unusual relationship between the old couple and the young couple.
And it was a great setup, though. Well, I don't know if anybody had anything else about that. But
Well, I mean, what better way to break the tension than by having a bunch of chocolate edibles together?
Yeah. And so that's kind of the event. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that it's I was talking a little bit about like how like vanilla the whole setup is not vanilla in terms of the film, but vanilla in terms of like the couples and the plays. But it's such a great setup because they're the front line basically because it's coming from the sea. And they're out there in the remote area, and it's a luxury to be able to have this house. It's a luxury to be able to spend these weekends there. But because of that, they're the first ones to be infected, the first ones to be taken down. And the film did such a really great way of isolating you, or giving you a feeling of despair and isolation. One of my favorite ones was the water. Like at one point, the water is infected, and they're turning on the faucets, and there is the ocean, the salt water, the faucets are gross and gunky, and it's like there's no water. You will immediately just die from that. and then of course later on there's and then also you realize that they're I think an hour away from a grocery store.
Oh yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very removed from the next town and help. So those whenever you would hear those little things like. It just kind of hit kind of hard that it was like, ooh, and now you can't drink water.
Right.
Yeah, they do a good job of pinpointing the isolation factor.
Mm-hmm.
Even though when they're on the beach, you can see that they're on a very long beach and there's houses everywhere. They somehow still capture the isolation, and that's a really interesting thing to me. How they, I think we were watching last night for Twisted Tuesday. My in-laws have a beach house on Hood Canal, so it's like there's houses kind of everywhere, but there is this isolation factor, and they did a great job of capturing that and making you feel like, yes, even though there's a neighbor and they're right next door, you're still sort of by yourself and you're alone. And then the other piece of it that I was thinking about too, as I was watching it for the third time tonight, is they sort of did a dichotomy of. I don't want to call it ageism exactly, but like Jake Weber's acting was so over the top. I almost feel like that's how young people see old people when they talk and they give opinions.
Yeah.
They're just like so loud and so in your face and so boisterous. And it's like, this is just how things have to be, and it reminded me a little bit of the amusement park. I'm not sure if anybody's seen the amusement park, but I got a little bit of that vibe from it. So it was just really interesting, like how, and I don't know if it was on purpose but Jake Weber was so over the top where he was just like, well, who are our new friends? And he was just so like he was an octave above everybody else the whole time. And there was something about that was, there was something about it that was great though. It was just great. He really stood out as just being like, here I am, I'm loud, I'm front, I'm focal, and you need to listen to me, but in the end, it's like things are going to go bad and you might just want to hang on. So I
love what you said that it's like, oh, what a young person might think an older person might say, which is hilarious because, well, we're there. And if a 20-year-old were to ask me for any advice, I'd be like, well, oh, you dropped out of college for a year, a gap year. That sounds great. Don't forget to fuck around extra much. You're only young once. Live it up. You're going to work for the rest of your life. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and there's a great shot of him where I think it's the young girl is talking to him and saying something like, oh, she's just kind of making small talk with him and kind of being like, oh, like you must have like a great relationship with your wife. She says something along those lines and he just kind of sits there and doesn't he just kind of stares ahead and then he's like, Yeah, and then he stands up and walks out of the room, and it's just like so weird, and creepy. Like,
yeah, he says sometimes when things change.
Yeah,
you know, and that's why I think that's honestly why I think the wife. I think her name is Jane. I think that's why I think Jane probably has something on par with Alzheimer's or something like that, where she's starting to lose herself. But then there are some spots too, and that same spot you're talking about, John, where he stands up and he kind of walks towards the beach, but he stands up almost like he's 80, and he's kind of like, like I almost wonder if there wasn't something going on with him too.
Because he's in better shape than me, so it's. Although I make those faces too when I get up. But no, you're right.
Well, so do I. So do I.
Some of those.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so of course, they decide to take edibles.
Which, incidentally, is actually a pretty good idea at the beach house.
Yeah, if you're vacationing. Oh, sorry, just to go back a tiny bit about the isolation in the beach house. Another thing about those kinds of neighborhoods, by the way, is
they're not communities, right?
Right, they're not full-time communities. So a lot of times when you rent a place there and go there, you like half the neighbors or more might not even be there.
Or strangers too.
Yeah, we're strangers.
And I remember, these guys didn't pay for it, but when I was younger and my 20s, and you got to go to a beach house, it was usually off season. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and nobody else was in the houses because that's when you could afford to go. So yeah, it's even though there was nobody walking around, there were no cars, there was no movement, everything was super still, and I thought that was a really nice piece of the puzzle there.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was strange. They talk about the mysterious dad, the dad that never shows up, and you wonder.
And he wasn't even there.
He wasn't. But what was his relationship with the couple? Like they were like, oh, we knew him a million years ago.
Friends.
You know what I mean? Though it wasn't like they were friends.
It was friends with you.
I almost thought at the beginning that they were crashing the joint.
Yeah,
yeah.
You get what I mean? Because there was no locks and no one's in the neighborhood, and the dad hasn't been there for a million years. So they just were like, oh, we know your dad, whatever his name was. I don't think they'd seen him in a long time. I don't think they were really friends. I think they just were like, oh, he said we could stay here. And really, if the door was open and no one was there, they just lived there. That's kind of how I felt. That was a part of the tension, too, maybe. Yeah. That we were like, oh, yeah, why
absolutely.
Are they there? Are they supposed to be there?
And then later she starts talking about, oh, I remember you when you were a little kid. But that's
a long time ago, too. Yeah, that's 25 years ago.
And initially it was
but for me...
but then she goes,
yeah, but for me, they knew his name. They knew his name. And I'm not sure they could pick that one up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, but having maybe that's true. But like I said, having in-laws with the beach house, if you go out to the beach house just randomly and not tell anybody, the odds are you might run into somebody that you don't know, because it's actually happened to me. It's actually happened to me at my in-laws' beach house. So the funny part of that whole thing was okay, so they first meet this couple, and it was like, I've had this happen to me. So for me, it actually made it all that more real. I don't know you, but then it's like, well, we're here. So what else are we going to do? We might as well make dinner, and we might as well have a glass of wine.
And it's not,
and it's like,
it's not a bad premise. I feel like that would be, if they knew each other, that's not an uncommon premise where it's like, you know what, let's make the best of it for tonight. Tomorrow we can wake up and see if we want to go somewhere else so we can bang.
Peace out, old people. I'm here now. I'm here with my girl.
I'm here to party.
You're cramping my style.
I know.
Daddy said she got to go.
That's right.
Are there locks on the bedroom doors?
Bye, Grandma.
Not that zombies will abide. Let's not get into that yet. Did they eat any seafood? I want to say that there was a bucket of oysters or clams or something.
Remember?
There's oysters.
He ate the oyster for the first time.
She was shucking oysters.
And it's just that was another part of it too, when you see it the second time and you know what's going on in the water. And to think how easy it is for your food to become contaminated, even if you're out in nature. I mean, we don't even think about it in our day-to-day lives, and there's factories that make our food that are dirty or not following regulations and whatnot, and you kind of assume that a little bit, but you kind of turn a blind eye. But then when you think about nature, you expect everything to be nice and clean. But we've been fucking with that shit for a while now, and there's no way that our fish are clean. We're still eating them though. I still like fish. Yeah. I'm just gonna go down with the shit, guys. I'm gonna continue to eat oysters.
But I'm gonna die.
But it makes you think, right? He's eating them, and you're like, oh, gross. The slime oysters. And they're already slimy, so you wouldn't be able to tell.
Well, just remember that in any food that you eat, there is an acceptable amount of rat shit
that
can go into it. There's an acceptable amount. Not none. Not none. An acceptable amount.
And bug parts.
And bug parts, you know.
Yep.
Protein.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just extra protein.
It's good for you. It's good for you.
It's bonus.
Yeah, that's what gives it the extra crunch.
Yummy.
But
Yep.
as,
Exactly.
as we see in the very beginning of the movie, there's sort of an underground or undersea quake that sort of unleashes.
right.
That's such a common trope. I
Yeah,
love
we
that.
saw that in
Piranha.
the Piranha movie, which we just did.
And wasn't
Yep.
there the other
Shows
one?
an event.
And then the other Piranha movie.
Then the other Piranha movie.
Oh, well, it was your movie, The Deep, or no, with the drilling in the deep sea.
Yeah,
Underwater.
Actually, yeah, that was an undersea quake too. Yeah, underwater.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's all about unleashing the beast.
and yeah, the
Can I ask a stupid question? Okay, so we watched the monster movies, and then we watched the gooey monster movie, like this one.
Mhm.
Which would you rather deal with? The big monster like Cthulhu, or like the slimy jellyfish monster that's just all over and gross? Big one, all over little one. Big one,
it's
all
kind
over
of
little one.
it's kind of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. It's like you're gonna get overrun by the little ones or stomped by the big one.
Although I think the little ones just want to incorporate you into the whole, so I don't know if that's a bigger misery or like a happiness, like in Tetsuo.
I think
Yeah, I go with the little ones because in the end I can get in my car and drive back to town and just not go in the water.
To the mountains.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
drink
No
clean
thanks.
spring water.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah,
that
yeah.
is assuming you can actually like make it all the way through the dense fog of the town.
Oh,
right, 'cause
it's
Very
not
true.
fun.
Very true. Yeah, we are neglecting the mist-esque vibe that this movie
That
gives
was-
too.
that was
There's a little bit of a mist esque.
here where they're like they've been struggling, and I don't know if we want to step ahead so much, but when they're struggling out of the house, and we'll go back and cover the getting high and walking around the psychedelic forest, but I had like that one little that was such a classic and yet new. It was a really cool twist on an old trope where they're calling for help. Don't breathe in the it's not mist, and you're like dun dun
Yeah.
dun. They've been breathing it this whole time. They're totally
for, like,
infected.
2 days.
You can't. It's definitely
Well, yeah, the radio operator said it's not the fog.
It's not the
That's
fog.
what he said. It's
Oh.
not the fog.
and
And it's
I
like, well,
love
if it's not the fog, what is it?
I love the
Okay, it's the
way the way that the voice of the person on the other
yes.
side of the
Breaking
radio,
up and
like the static and the way they were sort of hypnotized sounding was great. That they
Yeah.
had clearly been infected themselves.
all right. Should we backtrack to
But
the
yeah,
the party scene
Mhm.
with the edibles and the Jane going off into the psychedelic forest, thinking that it's a normal thing to happen on fucking weed? No, it's not, girl. Like that was ridiculous. Even I know that, and I don't do well on weed.
Well, then look
Yeah, my favorite is just like, well, how big of a piece should we really cut? Because I'm sure we've all had that experience with edibles
You
in
start
our
small.
lifetime where you always start small with edibles because that shit sneaks up on you.
So I would
Because you take too much,
they
you know,
wouldn't give-
everything just goes haywire.
Very much, yeah.
I wouldn't have thought they would have gave the older couple who were acting like, oh no, should we do it? Crazy, we haven't done drugs in a long time. So you'd think they would have gave them a tiny like microdose, but the way they showed it is they were like tripping so hard that it wasn't the edibles, right? It was,
No, it was the illness.
it was already the illness.
or the invasion,
And
whatever you
then
call it.
at first they think it's like bioluminescence. Like, wow, have you ever seen bioluminescence here? And then the way it just sort of like spread through the whole, like not just on the lake all pretty, but starting to trip everybody out now that like almost
That was neat.
In
Yeah.
the trees and
Yeah.
everything.
And then I didn't, everybody was sort of mad at the young dude because, he's just hanging out, listening to music, having a good
yeah, he's
time.
just ready to take a nap.
Yeah, and then, Weber dude comes in, he's like, where's my wife? She can't be alone. And he's just like, and there's just sort of like a slight tone of like, this is your fault. And then the girlfriend comes in with a slight
She's
tone
sick.
of, this is your fault. It's like, no, it's not. Like, this is exactly how every party goes. You get high and somebody's off there listening to music. Somebody's having a bad time. Somebody's feeling
Someone
sick.
disappeared.
Somebody passes out and wakes up at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Freaking out. Someone's paranoid. Like he's like, relax and just let the music flow. It's cool.
But I like that because it's like, that's
But
exactly how
then
this
is it
party
his
goes.
fault because he ignored all those signs for hours and just let them all fall apart when they
But
were
the
almost
signs-
trying to ask him for help?
True, but the signs were so easy to mistake for just having a bad trip,
Right.
which incidentally, the remedy for a bad trip is to either fall asleep or bear it through it. So, Like, it was everything. I love that about that movie, that it's so easy to, you can see yourself in those shoes, you know? Where it's like, who's going to assume that there's monsters from the deep coming for you? I mean, I might now, but.
Did anyone think it was weird when she woke up? Like, clearly they had passed out. And when we pass out, all of us, the audience, right, when it goes dark, we have not found the wife. We don't know where the husband went.
Right.
And we know the boyfriend just fell asleep because he didn't give a shit and he was tripping or whatever.
Right.
So she's sick almost, like she's going to throw up. She's sweating. She, like, faints. Why are the lights still out? Or why are the lights out when they all wake up? I thought that was odd. Because if everyone's gone and tripping, and the lights would have been on all night till, like, the next day.
Oh.
So it was like someone went to bed and like, shut the lights off, and we all were like, good night. And then, you know what I mean?
See you guys in the morning,
suddenly
Greg.
passed
Okay.
out, like, she passed out, like, face forward on the floor, like, all fucked
Yeah.
up. I would think I would check on that person, but then that was just weird to me. I was like,
If
why
it
are the
was-
lights not on?
You're
Like, the
absolutely
lights
right.
would still be on, the TV be on, the radio be on.
Yeah,
and it'd
all
be
the
like
shit would
4
be
a.m.
on, yeah.
How long have you been asleep?
All the food be out and half eaten.
Yeah. So,
But I mean, the only time that happens is when, like, there's that one responsible person that's like, ooh, okay,
right.
let's, put away the hummus.
So who was that? Maybe it was the creatures. Maybe. They were like, let's just all go to bed.
It was the oysters.
Like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you know, you fall asleep
Yeah.
and it gives it more time to, like, get into you.
Get into it, for sure.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, or like the Thing, the vibe from the Thing where you disappear for a couple hours. You disappear, right?
Mhm.
And like the two older people definitely had periods of time where they disappeared
Mhm.
and then came back, and it was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, I mean,
I was just thinking that.
I don't-
Maybe you should go first.
Oh.
Okay. I was just thinking that when that happens, though, when you come back after a few hours of being invaded, you come back as, like, already turned. These guys still had to go through their zombie phase, which
Right?
Yeah,
That
it's just
didn't
slow.
happen till the next
that
day.
didn't happen until the next day. So
They had already gone to bed even for a while.
well, that's my question though. That's my question. So when they disappeared, what were they going through? Were they going through like a really slow?
It's
Like the creature gets in there, puts on some Barry White, and opens a glass of wine kind of stage, or was it like a, kind of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre / Deliverance phase? I don't know because they didn't show us because he disappeared. Right?
Well, it's pretty much shown as like the mist or the fog has like this hypnosis quality to it that's like pulling them out essentially.
It's natural.
Now, what actually happens in there, we don't really have a clear indicator.
Yeah, I feel like the creatures in this are microscopic, basically, and
Sometimes.
you're kind of inhaling them, and they're going in through your ears and nose, and it's a slow transformation.
I feel like
it
there's
takes a
different
little while.
types, though, because
What
when
happens
she's
what
on
was
the
the
beach,
foot?
she has the big gloopy ones that are on the beach, and then she steps
like
on one
jellyfish.
and she gets the worm.
Well, so the thing about the ones on the beach was that the first time I watched it, I thought the things on the beach were like actual weird creatures.
Like, man
Like
of
humans,
war.
But
looks like
then
the
I
earthly
realized-
ones.
I think on the second viewing, I think they're actually jellyfish.
I think
They're
that's
just
what man of
regular
war is.
jellyfish.
Oh.
But I think they're infected jellyfish that have been taken over by
Look
the
at
new
you.
thing.
Okay.
And so,
Oh, interesting. Interesting thought. Okay.
When she steps on one,
It has
it's
that
like it's the sort of tentacle of a jellyfish, but it's
Under the
infected.
influence
Yeah, it's controlled
alien.
by the
Interesting.
alien creature.
because it looks like a man of war. Those Portuguese man of wars
Mhm.
look just like that. So that's why
Yes.
they just washed up, and they're very dangerous. Even if it was like dead, you're still not supposed to touch them. So that could be true. That if you did step on one and it impaled you, you could get really sick. But if it's not the
Interesting.
creature
Okay.
inside of it, now it's transferring it as like
So
the
whatever's-
Thing or like Alien. You know, there's something inside that now came out of something.
Okay, so whatever's happening in the water is happening to everything in the water,
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting, John.
and it's just somehow bring. I like
I like
that.
that a lot.
I like that.
Do you think that this
Yeah.
has like an element of like the nature's revenge, kind of idea where it's like
Yeah.
you should have taken
Yeah.
care you should have taken care of the earth.
Oh,
Now you get the horns
Or like, how that.
But-
because it's not an alien. I think it's a subterraneous.
Okay, right.
I
Historic
feel like it's
prehistoric
almost more
creature.
like what Zombie Grindhouse was saying, where it's chaos. It's there just happens to be this quake that just happens to release this thing, and now we're going to deal with what happens as a result of this thing being unleashed.
Because the girlfriend, remember, tells the woman her whole theory about life on Earth and how it just took this one thing.
Right.
So now that could be what's happening. Is she like, remember she says it just takes this one thing and now we have this life form, and that's how Earth and humans and all the animals on Earth were created, is just this one thing. So she had a whole speech about that.
Yeah. And how if you just change one little thing,
So
that
that's
you
it.
can
And that's
basically...
Interesting, yeah.
So-
Like almost like we see some of these movies where whatever happens infects the people, but this is almost. I love John's point. It's like it's infecting things at stages, and everything, everything that we encounter, because we've all been in the water and seen jellyfish. Okay, but what if the jellyfish is infected with whatever the thing is? So it's almost like an evolution of whatever the infection or the virus is as it comes up, and we're just the next thing in line to get it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
It's like
Yeah, and
like that a
everyone
lot.
in this movie is infected at a different rate and in a different way too over the course
Like
of
evolution.
its lifespan. Yeah, so like in Emily's case, she essentially, because she gets the parasitic worm from the jellyfish, which is basically just like a way to infect predators. And, if it gets removed, it basically is just coiling up, straightening out, and trying to find a new host at that point in time. But it's basically like this direct link to the theory that ancient aquatic life, it still lies at the darkest depths of the ocean at this point, and will eventually resurface as long as the climate continues to change at the dramatic rate that it is going. But that also ties into the way that she actually dies towards the end of the movie as well, which I'll get into when we actually get there.
Mhm.
It's just chronologically, we can even circle back on the foot scene again and talk a little bit more about how fantastic that was.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody's had that moment of having to pull out something from your foot or any part of your body, but the foot is such an awkward thing. We have to try to get down there and then combine that with the experience of having to remove a bug that went under your skin, which it's not as common, but it happens sometimes, or one that's latched onto you or something like that, right? So that was. Oh, and then she's going on it with tongs.
Yeah, the tongs.
Yeah,
Which
the
is
barbecue
a lot of,
tongs.
You don't get a lot of accuracy with tongs like that. I mean, I can't even fucking deal with them when I'm flipping a fucking burger. I'm trying to pull out this tiny little worm from this massive hole in her foot.
And it's gotta hurt. I mean, it's not like it's
sorry,
going to,
bad.
but when she pours the vinegar on it,
Oh, that was great.
and we
Vinegar
all
fixes
cringed
everything.
before she even dumped it on. We're like, that's gonna hurt.
But it's hilarious because even my mom, you can solve any problem with
Pour a little
distilled vinegar.
Just put a little vinegar.
Well, and I mean, to talk about this movie though, it goes on. And this was a point that I have in my notes too. The visuals in this movie. I mean, okay, I honestly think that this movie appears to be a movie that was made for much more money than it actually was.
Mhm.
Right.
The visuals in this movie, I think, were sparse, but when they had visuals, damn, they were impactful.
Definitely.
I mean, they hit you right in the sweet spot. And the foot thing is especially. I mean, that was so well done and probably done for about $8.67, but they did it really, really well.
And it just kind of hits me
it-
that I haven't seen this actress before in anything. Not that I know of. Maybe she's been in something that I didn't recognize her in, but in that scene,
Sons of Anarchy.
What's that?
Sons of Anarchy. That's Sons of Anarchy.
okay.
That's where you'd know her.
But she did so well because honestly, I was so in the moment. I had to now think that's right. She was acting.
yeah.
That was
Yep.
that was a good job. Good job.
Well, and
Yeah, it had the feel of somebody doing a YouTube surgical procedure on themselves.
Exactly.
That's what it did, and it was so just right on, and I mean, and everything, and pulling that thing out of her foot, and it had to be 8 inches long when it
And you
came
have
out,
to go
and
in
just
there and then go back and get in there.
She didn't smash it at the end, which I thought was weird. And so that was odd to me because I would have killed the thing, right? But she kind of was ready to pass out. Maybe, I don't know. 2, did anyone find it odd that she never said one word about it to the boyfriend?
Because she's a badass.
Because wouldn't you be like, dude, you know what just fucking happened to me? And why I'm limping and my foot's dripping blood and it's still wrapped up, and you wouldn't notice that. And I know he was sick too, but I would think you'd want to be like, wait, look, this thing crawled into my foot. And anyway, how are you?
Because she doesn't go to him for help. Because she doesn't.
Right.
She's just.
well,
not
no,
gonna
because
put her-
you're right. Holly's right. She's a badass and he's a bitch.
Right.
He's a bitch
Shouldn't
the
have
entire
the
movie.
guy disappeared
So-
into the ocean either. So I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's the bigger one that maybe
I'm
she
just
should have
gonna
brought
keep
up.
that to myself.
Your dad's friend just walked into the ocean.
Dead. And he crawled into my foot. But anyway, more about you, honey.
How are you
How's your
feeling?
day? Clearly you're not doing
Yeah.
Well, see, here's the thing. At the end of the day, guys with the quote man flu, are the biggest babies. So like he's completely out of it. So she's not gonna drop all this shit on him
Right.
because he's not gonna want to hear any of it because he's too busy wallowing his own emotions from being sick at the time.
So after this, so she's removed. I still love seeing a big gigantic gallon of white distilled vinegar. It's like, okay, we're cool now. Everything's gonna be all right.
Maybe that's why she lasts longer than anybody
Yeah.
else. Because of the vinegar.
Mhm.
Huh?
Yeah. So what happens after this? So she wraps up her foot, which is also very badass, and then she goes upstairs to check on her boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
And then we get the first zombie
I think
scene.
That's when we find the old lady has, and that's an interesting scene because like on my first viewing, I thought it was gonna be like the typical like once you get infected, you turn violent and start attacking people like a zombie movie, and it sort of feels like that's what happens when she comes in and finds him like being sort of attacked, quote unquote, by the old lady. It looks like she's attacking him and that he's like, oh my god, like, But the fact is, like, rewatching it, it really seems that she's not physically attacking him. I think she's just trying to infect him, or she's maybe trying to get help. But I think she's kind of like maybe trying to pass the thing along.
We don't actually...
Well, she's kind of wide-eyed at that point.
You got the marble eyes. But I was thinking, like, I don't think I remember... Was there actual violence from the zombies, or was it just like... Rah?
Well, she was kind of trying to grab him, and he was trying to crawl away from her.
Could it be considered, and I'm trying to remember how her physical actions, could it be considered like a cry of help? It's like, help me, help me. Because ultimately, no, because then when she broke through all the fucking doors, that was some zombie strength. So maybe you're talking about... Never mind, I take it back.
Okay, there's a question with that then, too, or comment. Remember the guy says... He forgot what happened for a while. He had been in he had been in there with her for a long time.
Yeah.
So it looked like she's attacking him zombie style, but yet he says, "I don't remember." He had a blackout moment that he woke up and she was on him. Was she trying to ask for help? Was she warning them? She couldn't talk anymore. We don't know. So then, yes, she violently tries to get out. Is that because she is sick and wants to get better, or? Right? And is she trying to escape too? And she's like, F you guys for leaving behind.
And then there's that because she is in her like pajamas. There's that tiny little element, not pronounced, but just a tiny little element of like, okay, man, what's going on now? Like you're in this room with this woman, you can't remember what happened. Are you okay?
Oh yeah, maybe they.
Are you okay?
Maybe they had the weird thing sex.
It's
a possibility.
I think she was trying to. I think they're all. It's like. It's trying to spread itself.
Right.
Whichever way possible.
In whichever way possible. So,
And I don't think it seemed to me on the second watching that it doesn't necessarily make you violent exactly. It just makes you want to spread the thing to other people that are not infected.
They're not taking bites out of each other or anything. So.
It's like The Thing, if I had to guess. I think it's like The Thing, where it's like a single consciousness that's like this spread out.
Well, that's the whole...
Or Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
The last line,
Invasion of the Body
they all have
Snatchers.
like, don't be afraid. You're one of us now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
One of us.
Gibbo gabble.
One of us.
Yeah, this movie definitely had that vibe of...
It goes back to the slow ramp up of tension. And this movie, I mean, if it does anything slowly, if it's my one gripe about it, and maybe after the fourth watch I'll change my mind and I'll love it for this. But it takes a long time to wind the, to get the spool wound up.
Yeah.
But to your point about when she like comes down the stairs and she's getting violent and then she wraps the hose around the door and she breaks through, that's right when they give you that. And then there were two moments.
Yeah.
When the neighbor comes around the balcony.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's really kind of the movie where it's like, okay, it isn't just us. And as soon as that moment hits, it's like, okay, it's kind of everywhere. And they don't give you a ton of backstory about what happened. It doesn't matter, really. But as soon as they give you then that, and then there were two moment, that's when I was just like, this movie just like, okay, I just buckled up and hung on from there because I knew it was going to get fast and it was going to get hard.
I'm really, now that you were saying that, I'm thinking now a lot more about the ending when you brought it up, Morticia, because previously it was like, and I thought it was just a cool ending, but now I'm thinking more about it. And of course, in these movies, when it's where the monster is also the collective, it's like, oh, now we're oddly happy. We don't fight anymore. And then it kind of hit me like, oh, maybe that was the whole point of the setup, right? Where you have this couple that is disjointed, the older couple that is disjointed because of like the disease that they're dealing with, and like the heartache and the stress. And then you have the young couple that's on different levels. They're not connecting. They're basically nobody's connecting for different reasons. And then it's like, well, just go to the beach and join the collective and you'll be fine.
It's like a cult.
It's a cult.
Don't worry about life. Join us and you'll be just fine. Don't be afraid. How many times does she say it at the end? Right? Like 5, 6, 7 times. Like she keeps saying it over and over again. Like a chant. It is. It's a cult. Interesting.
Chance equal cult.
I think too. Honestly, I think two things there though. I think, and I wrote this down in my notes when I watched it again tonight. I wonder if the older couple had not been interrupted by the younger couple, I wonder if, because I said I'm pretty sure the wife had something like Alzheimer's, dementia, something that was going to be life ending anyway. And then I also got the vibe that the guy had something, and I don't exactly know what it is, but I wonder if his plan all along was to
murder suicide,
give her a great weekend, do away with her, and then walk off into the ocean anyway. So I'm actually not 100% convinced that the older guy Mitch was infected with anything.
Oh, yeah.
I think he just carried out his plan.
Right.
Yeah,
and then
that's true.
and then when you get.
And that's maybe why she got activated as a zombie, because she had basically passed on, and now her butt. That sometimes happens in some zombie movies, where like they die and then the zombiness kicks in, even though they were kind of okay before.
Well, she got infected when she went out into the psychedelic part, where she was touching
the blue mildew.
So smart. We're like, what is this?
I almost thought she was suicidal because she was on antidepressants and stuff, right? Like if you read like her pills.
Yeah, she had all the pills.
So I almost thought she had already tried to kill herself before, and he was trying to give her like one of those last kind of like cheer up. So maybe they were both going to die, but
he was very afraid to leave her alone.
Yeah, he didn't want to leave her alone. But then once she was maybe he knew she was already infected.
Oh, that makes so much sense now that you say that. When he's always looking for her and saying she can't be left alone. Okay, that makes so much sense.
Look how smart we are.
She's like, she's just gonna kill.
Oh,
Then I wasn't sure, but then why did he kill himself first? And was that his plan all along? Though, like you said, that could have already been.
I feel like everybody got infected in some way or another, and it was just sort of like if you were really in it, like the old lady where she just like went and touched stuff and was right in the cloud, she got infected quicker than the other people who were kind of more out in the peripheral areas and not directly in it. But it seemed like the message of the movie was everybody's getting infected eventually. There's like no escaping it, basically.
Yeah.
I really... Well, are we good on this one? Because I kind of had another thought for something else. Okay. I don't know if it's jumping ahead too much, but I really loved the in the stranger's house sequence where they break into that house and she's trying to sort of I don't know, I'm doing air quotes, when she's trying to like seal or get them away from the mist. And of course you can't fight it. It's not a very airtight house. But then you have these, it's a much smaller, more what do you call it? Just less luxurious house. It's a smaller house, older house, and super dark. And all the hallways are really most of the spaces are very narrow. My point being that it gives you that whole like fighting for your life, and you never know where a zombie's going to pop out of, and you got to fight. And I thought it was just kind of fun when a movie gives you a whole nother element of a whole nother ride, basically.
It does a great job of changing the setting on you and changing it hard. And one of the things I found interesting is that when she comes up the stairs and she exits into the hallway and then she turns around, that basement door has a lock on the outside of the door. Like,
Interesting.
I wonder what people were keeping down there. Yeah, she locks the door. Like, well, maybe, or it could be a stained yellow mattress and a a van that says free candy on it. I don't know. But it had a weird, like and she does, they focus on it where she locks the door and I'm like, it's a basement door. Why does it have a lock? First of all, why is it on the out? Oh, okay. And then I just went, okay, I'm thinking too much about this, but it struck me as something like, why would that even happen? I mean, it just, and I think your point about the beach houses and how, one is so well equipped and has all the amenities, and then the house next door. And because, like, again, having the in-laws that have the beach house, I can tell you that that's actually how things are. There are houses that are just absolutely great, and then there are houses next door that are just like, why don't you just bulldoze this and put up a playground or something? Because it would just be better. But going through because I always wondered, it's like, and like, how did everybody get infected? And for Jane, the older lady, I think it was her going out and getting oysters. I think that's how she got infected.
Yeah.
For some of the other people, because they kept touching the tap water and there was something weird about the tap water coming out of the sink. Yeah. And I know from experience that when you have a beach house, typically you have a well, but a lot of ocean water can get into your well. And you can get, like, if there's a big algae bloom, sometimes the big algae blooms will come up through your well. Wow. And you'll be washing your hands and the water will turn red and you're like, well, what is going on? And it's like, well, it's an algae bloom. Yeah. So again, this is, to John's earlier point, this is a movie you have to watch more than once to really try to get everything. And the more I watched it, the more I got. And to be honest, the more I got, the better this movie got. So I've changed my rating on this. I know you guys don't do ratings specifically. I do. It's just what I do. But every time I watch this movie, it's gotten better because I pick up more things. So it's kind of made it an interesting ride. It feels like there's so much crap horror out there these days, and I mean, because there's just crap horror. Yeah. And like I said on Twisted Tuesday, I have been deep throating 2022 horror. Like I'm getting paid for it. And there's so much of it that is just junk. But then picking up this movie, I know it's not in 2022, but it's recent to me. It's like, I think in 20 years, this movie will be in the conversations that now include things like The Thing.
Nice.
It's that good. It's that good. Maybe not The Thing good, but I think it's going to hold up over time. It's got so many things about it that are going to hold up long term.
And even that, we didn't talk too long about the psychedelic forest, but that was a really neat scene. I mean, you can really put yourself in her shoes and just be like, wow, wouldn't that be neat?
And you would touch it.
Especially if you're fucking high.
Yeah, you'd be like, this is so cool.
Oh, yeah. Just...
As the audience, I'm like, don't touch it, that's stupid. But if we were tripping and it was pretty, you're like, pretty. Oh my God, I would die.
I'm ripping my face.
They're definitely playing with that thing where they took edibles, but it's also implied that getting infected starts messing up your mind and stuff, and is kind of psychedelic itself.
That's neat.
And so they're high. The fact that they're still high 24 hours later is because they're infected, basically.
They're
high on their new life.
And to tease earlier point, they all had a little bit different experience because I mean, everyone was doing things differently. The one guy was just shuffling through the records. The older lady was just like taking in the younger girl's wisdom and just being like, and then the one guy was at the sink doing dishes and he's like, wow, soft water, I mean, so everyone got it a little bit differently, but yeah. But then when it lasted into the morning, did anybody notice the sort of, and I don't know if they used, there's probably some film effect that I know about this, but when you saw Emily in the morning and she was waking up, a lot of the shots had this distinctive, almost like 3D filmed effect, where it was like, there were so many outlines that became like, it was just crazy, and it was like, it reminded me of. Okay, I have a cat here that's my cat's gonna help here. So, and like from seeing like being in the mid '80s and when they made the King Kong movie that was going to be in 3D, and you're so like looking forward to it. And if you happen to see it on one of the late night broadcasts and didn't have your glasses, it had a lot of those shots where it was like you could see the main frame and then the red and the blue,
and
it
became like
halos.
The universal way of indicating that somebody's high.
Yeah,
kind of. Yep.
Oh my God, nice.
It's trying to just take over.
But Yeah, exactly. And it became
That
like
asshole.
the cat.
There it is. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Good
This
timing. No.
damn cat does this
Get
every
ready to
time.
get famous, T.
That was
We're gonna watch this video just for that.
perfect.
Mhm.
But yeah, and that was like the kind of psychedelic effect of the creatures too. I think was that cool visual effect where the colors were kind of separating
That 3D.
from each other.
Yes, absolutely.
Kitty cats and turbulence.
Mm.
Oh, is that
the
what we're
visuals
calling
of
it?
this movie? The visuals of this movie are really good.
Yeah, that great scene of Weber or Webb, the actor's name, walking into the ocean.
Yeah,
That was pretty artistic. Like I was really impressed how sadly
That was
beautiful
really
that
good.
was. Yeah.
and it was well
Yeah.
done too because it's like. Of course, that's exactly what would happen in real life if you were sitting on the beach and someone did that. You would just be like, "Oh, they're gonna like swim,"
Go for a swim,
and then
yeah.
they keep going, and then you're like,
And
And
they
then
don't come out.
by the time they disappear, it's like it's like, oh, well, why doesn't she run in and try to
Right.
jump in and help
But
him?
how,
But
right?
you could never
Find
do that.
him,
You
yeah.
would never find him at that point.
I
in
thought
either
she
way.
had a weird feeling about it to begin with, though. He's just got his regular old clothes on.
Yeah.
He's been gone for like 12 hours, and all of a sudden he just shows up in her face on the beach. Okay, so that was creepy. And she was like, "Oh, hey, you've been gone for a really long time." And he's like, "I'm gonna take a swim in all my clothes." So she kind of made a face like, "Okay," but she doesn't know him well enough, and it's awkward to be like, "I think that sounds creepy and weird. Maybe you shouldn't swim right now." Of course,
Yeah.
you're just gonna be like, "Oh, you do you, have fun." So I think she had it in her mind something was wrong. She was already on edge, and she's watching him because he's been he disappeared for a really long time, and no one could find him. And then all of a sudden, he's really far out and disappears. And I almost think she just sort of knew that was going to happen, but there was really nothing she was going to do about it. Again, yeah, you couldn't swim all the way out there and find him. I mean, it would probably be impossible. So, but it seemed to me like she already thought that was weird. Oh, there you
yeah.
are. You
But
just
it's-
showed up. I'm going to go swimming now. Sorry, I've been gone. How's my wife? He didn't even ask, really. I don't know. It was weird.
And there's already like a way that people. I know that I've in the past have sort of you try to normalize situations because you don't want it
Because
to
it's
be true.
awkward, right?
You don't want it to be true that somebody's trying to kill themselves, so you kind of like stand
She
there,
ignored it.
not really frozen, but you're like, that couldn't possibly be happening, could it?
She's like, okay.
And then by the time you realize it, you're like, oh, maybe I should have done something like
But
5 seconds ago.
she was watching him the whole time, like, this is weird. You know, this is not a normal. Yeah,
You
have fun
expect at
swimming.
some point for somebody to go horizontal and start,
Right.
you know, but then,
It was awkward the whole time.
and then just like no bubbles, nothing.
Right.
Oh.
And I love his just little head just disappears. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yes, we saw that happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously that was going to happen.
And that's pretty traumatizing. I mean, not for us, but you know, if it were a reality, is what I'm saying.
I would
Well, but I think you're right, Holly. I think because that's where I think personal experience in life can make a horror movie like good or bad for you. So my father died of Alzheimer's.
Oh.
Okay. So, but no, we don't need it. Thank you, but we don't need it. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm saying is that I can understand both the things that the wife was going through and how like she could just disappear and you didn't know where she was. But I can also see the husband's aspect of it because I had to deal with my dad for a long time where it's like, you know what, fuck it. I can't deal with this right now. I can't do it. I gotta take a fucking time out. So like for me, that was a big piece of it where it was like, I get all of this, which is why, and I'm going to go back and say that I'm not entirely sure that the older husband was infected when he died.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have just said,
Emotional,
fuck it.
You know, stress, trauma. Yeah.
He wanted to
Yep.
disappear.
Might have just said, hell with it. I'm done. I'm out.
He disappeared maybe for
Because-
a reason then.
Well,
That's
he
a really
also
good take.
he also kills himself before she becomes fully infected, so he's not killing himself because of what happened to her in terms of the creatures. You know what I mean? Like that
Right.
hasn't
Oh,
really
right.
manifested itself fully yet.
We had a sort of a
Exactly my
theory.
point.
Yeah, we had a bit of a like little theory earlier that maybe he'd done it in the background, not in like the foreground of the movie, and then had like dispatched her and then killed himself.
Mhm.
But honestly, like this seems to make more sense.
Yeah, that's right. He was tired and he was escaping because it was inevitable what was happening to her. And maybe he couldn't handle watching it get that bad.
Or already had gotten very
Since it's
bad and it was
painful, right.
already overwhelming. That's deep.
And I also want to say, like, to call out something good about how this movie's written and put together. When they're just hanging out on the beach before that happens, when it's the boyfriend and the girl, the young couple, I was thinking it's kind of weird that they went out to the beach just to hang out when there's this situation going on where the lady has disappeared, because at that point she's basically gone and no one knows where she is.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was thinking, but then again, they don't really know each other that well, and these are just the people thrown together all of a sudden at this last second. So it actually kind of makes sense that they would still kind of be like, they wouldn't necessarily be that invested in what's going on with the old lady, even though she's disappeared. Because they're like, whatever, she'll be fine. Like, I don't really know her. I'm not really worried
She's
about
a grown-ass
it.
woman. There's like 3 houses here. She'll be
And
fine.
she's not that old in the scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just comparative to them. Because, I mean, how old are they? Like 60 tops, right?
Not even. I would say like
late 50s.
Late 50s, yeah.
She looked a little older than him, maybe. But,
Yeah, I did see that too.
Because in a worse movie, they would just go hang out at the beach to set up the next thing. And it would be like, this makes no sense. Why would they? They should be worried about the person who's missing. But it actually works.
Yeah, their laissez-faire attitude is like, well, we should just sit down because I'm hot and then we're going to tan. Okay.
Well, there's also at the
when
beach
somebody...
house, there's only 2 things to do. You either sit in the beach house or you sit outside of the beach house.
And remember, they're running out of booze because he's like, I want some whiskey. Is there a store? And they're like, nope. So they're like, well, shit, let's do these edibles because we were going to get drunk.
And I love that great scene where just when she gets the worm in the foot and she's hobbling over, and then, of course, the staircase.
Oh, it's so
Yeah, that's a great shot.
What are the odds?
She has to crawl up.
Those are like
the
San Francisco
staircase.
stairs.
Totally.
Gotta climb.
Yeah, that's a funny shot for sure. But yeah,
A good way to keep the interest going. Yeah.
definitely. So we're getting to the end now, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
We need to talk about how her infection with the jellyfish plays into her eventual demise at the end of the movie, which is something I was alluding to earlier. So basically, in that moment, we know that she's sitting out on the shore, and she's basically accepting her fate at that point, as the high tide starts to roll in. And with jellyfish, basically what happens when they come out of the water and onto the beach, they essentially evaporate. So in this case with Emily, when she's getting swept into the ocean, she's basically dissolving in that moment.
Yeah, that's a good shot. I forgot about that shot where
disappears.
the water comes in and then she's just gone.
Yeah, I thought she was pulled into the water and part of the water.
But it was, but it is on the
she's
quick
saying,
side.
don't be afraid. Yeah.
I feel like they're all, my head canon is that they're all turning into sea creatures. That eventually, it's sort of Cthulhu-esque, where basically the human race is going to go live in the ocean now, basically.
I don't mind that we don't go many movies without mentioning Cthulhu. I like that. I don't mind that shit at all. But, I like that. I mean, it's also evolution was out of the water onto the land, and now we're evolving back in. Because honestly, if that's where a lot of shit comes from, or all of it, it's that's the core of.
And that's that great shot too of when he disappears in the ocean, and I think they repeat the shot even after when he walks in the ocean, where it's just that shot of the ocean.
Yeah,
and it's just showing you how there's this gigantic world that we don't know anything about, just that's beneath the surface.
And that I'm scared shitless about.
I'm a scuba diver and I love the water, and I've been on the craziest night dives and seen the craziest stuff, and it's amazing. It definitely gives you adrenaline rush, but because you're such a tiny part, and you can die so easily, as you know, under there, right? But when I was watching the movie, I was thinking about those documentaries where they go into those deep, deep, dark, they see all those sea creatures, the ones with the weird little, the bait with the light and the weird teeth, and the ones that are all and all the stuff that they just lightly touched on that we know is down in such depths that humans can't reach it without like robotics because of the water pressure, right? We'll just like, so, even as like a diver, like a novice diver, you can go 90 feet like max. Okay. And that's even kind of like pushing it.
Wow.
So, and you have, your computers that tell you how long you can be down for so long. So I think since we know the ocean is more than land on this planet that we live on, right? There's more water than land, and that we haven't touched, we humanly can't possibly get to like how deep there are. We have no idea what's down there that could come up through these vents, exactly. Almost like space, right? Because it is kind of like space. So if anyone's ever even snorkeled, that weird sound and the darkness, and it is almost like what I envision space to be, even though I've never been there. So again, like an alien planet, and is it better if we just absorbed into that because it is a part of Earth? So that could happen.
Join the collective.
Yeah.
Well, but I think at the end though, when she's on the beach and her eyes have turned that seashell blue that the other zombies, we'll call them, because she's talking and she's saying, "Don't be afraid." I think, based both on her educational background, she's studying biology. I think what they were showing me anyway was like a new evolution of a person / sea creature / almost metaphorical being that we don't understand yet, right? That we just don't, we haven't, because we haven't seen it yet, So I think it's some of the other things that we saw where they were like, because we saw a couple of what I would call she-cell eyes zombies, the blue eyes and whatever else, and then we saw the creature in the basement, and I didn't fully understand that. It seemed a little, a little clunky to me, like a little bit like.
It's like black,
like half-assed,
right?
like half-assed brown canvas creature from the Black Lagoon sort of thing. But then to see her and to see like she has this knowledge and she has this wisdom and she has this like desire to learn and to like get to the next level. I almost think it's like they kind of collectively put her together as like the next level of whatever this creature was going to be,
And she didn't seem right, and she didn't have the oozing really in the same like. Yeah, she was changing in a more peaceful way.
She was fighting for her life, but once the realization hit maybe and she joined up, then she was more ready to be part of it or something. And I know you're ready to be part of it. You definitely want to be a mermaid.
Yeah, I want to be a mermaid. That'd be
real
awesome.
bad.
Well, that's the thing. I really think that's what's happening here is that they're making mermaids and mermen for sure. Ultimately, that's what we're going to end up with.
Finally learn how to swim.
I want to be a sea creature.
Yeah, just put this and the lighthouse next to each other, and we probably got something, right?
But I
the next evolution.
Felt like that creature at the end was sort of like this was someone who maybe had been infected the earliest.
Well, that was an old house. That wasn't a tourist house. That wasn't a luxury or like a vacation home. That was somebody's house.
Like they were the furthest along in terms of transformation.
Because they lived there day to day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it definitely had a fish out of water vibe compared to the rest of what we had seen from, where we have this blue luminescent mold, and we have this like sort of greasy water. We have this little worm thing, and then there was this thing, and it was just like, and it was like, for me, it didn't fit real well.
Maybe it was somehow like dying or not dying, but it needed to get back in the water real quick. Yeah, because it wasn't
maybe.
It looked like it was
but
it was like infecting somebody else or transforming someone else too. Wasn't there a second person kind of with it? Sort of, I think.
Yeah, it was like on. Well, no, it was. What wasn't it? It was on top of the boyfriend, wasn't it?
Was it on the boyfriend? Right.
Yeah, I think it was on Randall. Yeah, it was trying to consume Randall, and maybe that was part of what you said about how it wanted to spread, but it just didn't. Like with all the visuals we had seen prior to that, it didn't really fit. Mm-hmm. It seemed a little like
a little monster.
Like we had some wet cardboard and like this other stuff laying around, so we'll just make this guy.
Orlando, though, right? I mean, like everybody transforms, but he had to deal with diarrhea at the same time.
Oh yeah, that was so weird. I was like,
so shellfish too, right?
He did eat the shellfish, but then no one else got. Maybe it was like just because.
Yeah, I think
that would be my luck, by the way. It's like not only are you transforming, but you're gonna have to
the magic oysters. Yeah, the magic oysters. Yep, that's what it was. Yep.
They had some cool shots of the little creatures that were like sort of oyster looking that were sort of pulsing that you would see
right.
sitting, laying around in certain places.
And the funny part is that shit that comes out of the water is already so weird. I would never be able to tell the alien apart from like just natural wild like sea life.
Have you seen the jellyfish on Ocean Beach? Some of those really giant clear ones. Like there's some big ones with like weird little veins in them and stuff. I'm always mesmerized by those. What are they?
What are you?
But they're just wild. It's wild. Yes.
Be careful. That's how it draws you in with the hypnosis.
Oh yeah, I
You get
do get
infected.
close to them, kind of.
Too
Great.
infected.
I'd be dead immediately.
Me too.
Yeah, they're definitely
Because I'm eating the
strong.
oysters.
Definitely made me think of The Thing and Invasion of the Body Snatchers were like the two movies that like it felt a lot. Not that it was like copying them in any way, but it just felt like this is a creature that's kind of based on those movies.
Right.
That idea, and that similar to those movies, it's not. I mean, the Thing is pretty violent, but it's kind of not. Like if it just gets you, it's going to absorb you.
Exactly. It's
And
only when you fight it, when they
Yeah.
try to like do the electrocution in the blood, remember, and then it like freaked out. So yeah, it's not.
It's
You're
not
right,
like
it's
a
not
violent thing.
It's a slow, smooth.
Mhm.
You wouldn't even
Don't be
know.
afraid. Just give in.
Just like Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Well, it's not.
violent.
But it's not, for the thing. It isn't violence, though. It's not. It's not about violence, and I think this movie has a little bit of that too. It's about survival.
Yeah,
That's all it's
exactly.
about.
Well, that's right. The
Has nothing to do with I want to cut your head off and and butt fuck your corpse. It's not that.
You know what?
It's I just want to get to tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know
That's
what's
what it is.
interesting though? I mean, it
Yep.
lives in the water. There's plenty of shit to attack there. Then it also kind of has a sense of reclaiming the life that left the water to bring it back, to drag us all back to hell, to the ocean. Because, I mean, when you think about it, if it lives in the water, and it wants to be in the water, and there's already plenty of fucking fish to fuck with, like, why bother? Why?
Well,
Bigger game.
It's because it's taking
But
us
that's-
back. It's on purpose.
Well, but that's the point, though. So it's like, I mean, because if you don't have, like, people don't have to get into the water, right? They have to have something that lures them to the water. And I think that's the whole point. It's like, it takes whatever the next available creature or life form is and transforms it. And then it's almost kind of like evolution, but like on an alien or whatever scale. I'm going to speed this shit up. I got shit to do. I got to be places tomorrow. So I'm going to speed this up. And it's like, so I get on shore and then I have like all those pods, all the pods and all the, like jellyfish pods on the shore. And then it's like and if you've ever walked on a beach, we all know that we have stepped in some shit that we didn't know what it was.
Every time. Every time.
Exactly. So I mean, but that's how it happens. It's like a bear trap. You just don't know it. So that's kind of how it worked. And that was kind of one of the pieces I appreciated about this. It was like, I'm just going to set you up. You're not going to know what's happened, but it happened, and now we're moving. Now we're on land. Now we've grown legs instead of fins, and we're moving. Yeah, I like it.
Did you notice how they went out to the beach and looked at the water and had not noticed all of those like man-o-wars or whatever they were? And then all of a sudden there were like 1,000.
Mhm.
Were they
Yeah.
immediately there, or had she not noticed, like we might on the beach not notice certain things as we walk by it? Yeah, I have a
I'm
dog.
guessing those showed up when they were tanning. They showed up when they were tanning because
Okay, because I was like, they weren't there, or she didn't notice them.
I've been watching lots of movies lately, and I'm trying to think if I'm right about this scene. Was this the scene where she's driving through the fog really fast? It was that another movie.
They did.
I think
She
so.
was
That's
in
the
the
part,
car,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
she.
she was.
I just
no,
wanna
she was doing that. Yep.
mention that was. I also love that too. You know, like did everybody get the same sense? You're like, bitch, slow down! You're going too fast. The fog is good. It's blurring your vision.
It's in a couple movies though, because
yeah,
right, that same kind of. I can't really
that's
see.
what I was like.
I'm-
Was it this one? Yeah. And they're going too fast, and of
Yeah.
course they crash.
Because especially when there's like a fog or a mist, because it's in the mist that they're driving, although he drives slow. I watched Gerald's Game, which is a horrible Stephen King, like, the horror movie, though, it's horrible, but there's a part where it's kind of misty and dark, and she's, like, lightheaded and tries to escape, and crashes, of course, you know what I mean? So there is that, you almost got out of it, you're so close, and then they get in the
Yeah.
car, and they're lightheaded, and they're ready to pass out, and they crash, or whatever. You're
Like,
like,
pull
no!
over!
Yeah, exactly, you get
Pull
so upset
over!
at the end, like, just slow down, just stop, like, just wait, take a nap, whatever.
Go
Like,
real slow,
You're
go
so
5 miles an hour.
close, you're so close to getting out. And then, of
Yeah.
course, you're in this vehicle and you're in the dark woods.
Going like 80 miles an hour, for fuck's sake.
Because you just want to make it to, like, safety. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the first gear versus fifth gear argument. It's like if you just drive slow and wait,
Slow,
you'll get there.
yeah.
But yeah,
Well, she only had so much oxygen left in the tank too.
Yeah.
That's right.
She
The
got the
oxygen
tank.
tank. That's so
that's true. She is nursing that scuba tank, so she's thinking she's got to get going. Yeah, and she was talking about early in the movie, talking about getting certified as a diver, so she probably would know that. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
But I was like, she's already infected. By the time she figures out the air tank, it's like, you're already infected. It's in you now already.
Well, that's a really big whippet.
You know, when they broke into that house, it really pissed me off that they like laid there for a long time with the window open, and I was like, "What the hell?" He said to close it up, and you're just dilly dallying. Like, okay,
They should have a busted foot and a lazy boyfriend.
you got this far. Let's take it to the next level and close up the fog or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you might as well. Or what are we doing this all for then? You know?
The funny thing about this movie that just reminded me of is that when they like that kind of sequence where they break into the neighbor's house and then they're in the neighbor's house and then she gets to the car and goes, that kind of whole sequence. It was funny because when I was watching that, it suddenly occurred to me that like this is kind of like in any other movie. This is like, oh my God, all the things are chasing us. And it's like, oh my God, we have to like barricade the windows and the doors because everything's trying to get to us. And then it was like, wait a minute, there's nothing actually chasing them.
It's just the fog, the
like,
air.
Yeah, it's
the
just
microbes.
Just a sense of urgency, really.
But it felt like, they need to sort of barricade themselves in. But
Night
it's
of the
like,
Living
wait a
Dead.
minute.
Yeah, Night of the Living Dead. We're locking ourselves in. Interesting.
And even the neighbor who was sort of zombified and coming, they're so slow and sluggish that they really truly are. And there's so few of them that it's really truly like, they're not really a threat.
Oh, you know what's cool though? That guy probably put the other more advanced zombie in the fucking basement.
Oh yeah, maybe that's why the lock was there.
Of course, it's such a little side story that I didn't even think about because so much shit is happening that I didn't. I mean, not that I didn't put two and two together. More like I didn't care to do that math problem. I had other shit to look at. But then you're like, when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that old man lives there. That was probably his. You know, his life partner.
It's definitely a watch again, like you guys said, because I just was on the ride, got off, didn't know what the fuck happened. I didn't have time. My brain didn't have time to really think about why is that lock on the door. I mean, you have quick, fleeting thoughts, but you're not really like analyzing them yet. Yeah, they're fleeting until you watch it third, fourth time. Now you can start to
like light another cigarette. You gotta watch the shit again.
I gotta watch it again. Really.
Well, and for everything that happened in this movie, for everything that happened, going from the beach house to trying to escape, to seeing the neighbor as a zombie, to getting into the basement, to doing everything else, I don't think the main character, Emily, was ever more than about 100 feet from the beach.
No.
I don't think she ever got... So, so in the end, she got dragged right back there. So for all the running and for all the panic and for everything else, it's like she was right there anyway.
I love when she gets on the radio. What is it? What's it called? Like Beachcomber Road? We're on Beachcomber. I'm like, of course it's called that. So how prophetic is that? It's like we're right there anyway, and we never, for all the and the last like maybe 15 to 17 minutes of this movie it's just hectic as hell. It's just absolutely. But she's getting these air tanks and she's going up in this basement. She's always on the beach. Yeah. She never gets away from it, you know. So it's like in the end, it's like that's where she was going to end up regardless, you know. And then you get to the end, and it's like I honestly still think that she was sort of semi okay with her evolution. Oh, absolutely.
I think she was okay with it.
And I love the part that she had so much fight in her. She did, I would say, at least 50% more than your average person would do to survive in that situation. You know, just with the ingenuity, with the energy, with just the physical ability. Because I'm like 20 years older. I feel like I would have given up like 40 minutes earlier than that.
You would have saw the stairs and been like, yeah, I'm not
no. I'm one with the jellyfish now. That's my fate.
That's my fate.
Well, she has this vibe of like it's all done. I've accepted my fate, and as long as I'm here, I'm going to be the queen.
Yeah.
That's where I got at the end.
She is like the queen bee. I thought that too, and the queen ant.
The queen ant.
In the colony.
The mother bug, if you will.
Right.
Yep.
And because of who she is and everything, all the stuff she talks about leading up to this, she's the one, she knows intellectually what's happening while it's happening, which is why she's not scared, because she actually understands exactly what's going on.
And she says it in such a way where it's like, it's not even like her own personal, I mean, it is her own personal wisdom, but it's also like that little part in all of us that knows that we belong in the ocean. We belong in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. We were born in fluid, and you know how they say that babies, when they're first born into water, it's a less stressful birth, you know, so you can have like an aqua birth or whatever. And there's a mammalian instinct, as I'm sure you've all heard about, where when you like people that free dive, they get into a very calm state and they can like calm their heart rate. And it's almost like our evolution was water based, but we've just gotten so far out of it.
Yeah. Oh, look at us.
Interesting.
We've been drinking.
The mammalian. Yes, it's a thing. It's
Back
true,
to
though.
the ocean. But yeah,
Well,
I have to say too, the older guy, it kept torturing me because I recognized him from something that I was really
Night of the
familiar
Living-
with.
or
Yeah,
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead 04. Yeah, Dawn of the Dead 04.
I haven't
Yep.
seen him in a long time. I'm glad you mentioned
Yeah,
it. I
the
wasn't
Zack
going to.
Snyder
I was
Dawn
like,
of the
I don't
Dead.
know if I should bring it up. But that's such a good... I actually like that
That's a
remake
good
quite
one.
a bit. And I like that actor. But then I haven't seen him in a long time. And then I right away...
He's great.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, my only thing I have to call out though, because he's a British actor, and
What?
his
I didn't know that.
his
Yes,
American
the
accent's a little bit iffy. It's a little wonky in the movie, but that's okay. I can give him
I
a
just thought he
pass.
was infected.
Because in Dawn of the Dead, he's very American. He's like
Yeah.
the American dude. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great in Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, that's his over the top part though. That's why he was so. I think he was trying to be almost like the middle aged douchey American, just like, hi,
Yeah,
so we have new friends. I would love another glass of wine. That'd be. He was so like vocal and verbose when he talked. Like he packed a whole lot into like one moment, and then he was just gone.
yeah.
And it's like then we're on to the next thing. And I was like, but he was, yeah. No, I love Jake Weber in this. I loved it.
He was great.
Yeah. I was
Yep.
And the old lady I've seen before in movies. I forgot to look her up, but I've definitely seen her in other stuff. She's been.
Everybody
in
was
other
great.
movies,
I
yeah.
thought that everybody did a really good job.
did.
Mhm.
I mean, with the fact that I didn't have to even think about the acting, that's how you know everybody's doing an awesome job.
And I always say when I like an actor or I get invested in someone's characters, when I believe them. Like, because so many times I see actors that people think are really great and their roles are really great, and I don't believe them really. I know they're acting and they're a good actor and they're portraying that very well, but I don't really like believe it. So when you believe them, most famous actors, like, I don't know, like I feel like they're acting for sure. So if you believe that they are that person, they're not even really trying. Then
Yeah,
that's
that's
a good actor to
fantastic.
me. Like, that guy seemed like a douchey kid who was like, I don't know if I should go to college. My dad left me
Oh,
to
shut up,
house,
man.
whatever. I'm gonna take advantage of my girlfriend, suck her back in, and then the girlfriend who's like a martyrer through the whole thing, right? Like, you know, she hasn't gotten anything she's really wanted. She's the smartest one. She's the most caring one. She's our hero. And then, yeah, I believed all the characters for sure.
That's
They
nice.
were who
That's
they
great.
were portraying.
Really.
Yep. Nope. 100% agree.
I hope they watch
100%.
this and appreciate our compliment.
T, we've been taking over. You got any thoughts you wanted to share, T?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I know we've been going for a while.
Oh, have we? What time is it? An hour and 22. Oh, shit.
82 minutes. Yeah.
We're almost going the length of the movie. That can be the
Yeah, that seems to be an ongoing trend. Yeah.
Yeah. Reviews that are as long as the movie. Reviews
right.
that are longer than the
Reviews
movie.
are longer than the movie.
All right.
Mhm.
Well, if the movie's good though, they should be.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We've had a couple of reviews where we're like, well, that's 20 minutes. Okay.
I feel like-
that's what it was.
I feel like people who gave this movie a negative review basically didn't make it through the first 20 minutes.
Yeah,
of the
they were
movie.
too bored by
They
the,
gave up.
the slow setup.
And they turned it
Yeah.
off and said, "This sucks."
Yeah. I almost quit a little bit. Like, I started to get
Pass the
distracted.
fireball.
I got distracted for sure. I was like, I don't know.
I mean, when that
But I
phone
had
comes in,
committed to this. See? I was like, nope. I need to have an opinion.
it's fun.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I just Googled it really quick to see what the Rotten Tomatoes community score was. or whatever metric this is, but it's rated a 1.8 out of 229 ratings.
That's
That's
crazy.
insane.
No, that's just stupid.
That's crazy
just stupid.
because
This is
there are so many. Like I like to use the term fake movies. In the horror genre, there are movies that don't even qualify as being a real movie.
Right.
That like
Like the ones
this
on Amazon?
this is so far beyond
Yeah.
like what the like a lot of typical trash that comes out that it's just like that's crazy. A 1.8 is what should be given to a movie that isn't even a real movie.
Yeah.
Or like a horror sequel or something.
But you know,
Yeah, so that was like the
One of the
that's
sequels.
like the Google one, but it was like 29 on RT for the audience,
Even
which isn't
better.
great either by any means.
Right.
this movie should be like up in the 80th percentile,
Yeah,
at
I mean,
least.
And
It's worth
in
it.
fairness, it's like this does ask you to like commit
Yeah.
to it, and it's like in this day and age, the
Right.
pacing of movies, like movies
Yeah.
used to be slower paced in the old days.
We're 280
Not
Now
no
the
more.
pacing
Yeah.
has to be faster.
Now.
I need you to punch me in the face
Yeah, yeah,
immediately.
yeah, yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
I'm not going to watch your movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, not every movie can be underwater where it just starts immediately.
yeah, exactly. It's like basically you got to have those kills or monsters appearing within the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
I have to admit that I've gotten it. Especially if it weren't for this show, I would still be watching movies with like also looking at my phone.
Oh, yeah,
But whenever like I'm watching a movie because we're gonna review it, like I'm paying attention, I'm engaged, and I enjoy it so much more. But man, the allure, the call of the phone,
It's
strong.
It's just our culture right now that it needs immediate gratification and there's no buy-in. So I appreciated like you said, watching it again. That it would be worth watching it again, and that it's like the roller coaster ride of like.
And you watched it with Ted. What did Ted think about it?
Oh yeah, he loved it too. And again, I mean, he looked away at the the
At
worm
the
part.
foot stuff.
But we were invested pretty immediately. I mean, we both had that moment where we were like, all right, where are we going with this? It's dragging a little bit, but then we were like, all right, we're getting somewhere, right? We're getting somewhere. And so we were definitely invested. And we haven't watched, like I said, I am not good with the whole movie anymore. I'm definitely like in that culture of like, I don't know, I could be doing something else.
Can we make it shorter?
And I love horror. So like usually horror will suck me in, but lately there hasn't been good enough horror to really like get me invested. I'm like, it's a lot of sub. I'll go back to the old horror I like instead, because I'm like, I'm just going to go watch one of my favorites because most new stuff is boring me.
Yeah.
So I do like seeing something like this that I haven't seen, like suck me in and get me kind of passionate about it. I was like, oh, that's been rare.
Yeah, I think as a modern horror fan, I think we all know that as a modern horror fan, when you're trying to discover new things, you have to wade through a lot of
Yeah, a
track
lot of crap.
to find
Bullshit,
the
yeah.
gems, basically.
Hey, maybe on our reviews we can put like a little thumbs up or like a little thumbs down right on the screen so people know that we liked it. Or the opposite.
It's worth it.
Thumbs up, like Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah. Oh, we could do something better
the
than
middle thumb, like
Yeah, the shrug emoji, like with Aqua Slash.
Well, it
Basically
does
what
seem
it is.
like though. It does seem like this year though, like horror in general is seeing a little bit of a resurgence.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things coming out that like I'm still a theater guy, so I like to go see things in the theater. And there's been a lot of pretty solid things in the theater. I have my magic list that I have, and I haven't been keeping it that long. I've only been keeping it since probably about March this year. But I have seen close to 60 2022 horror movies.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
And
Get some recommendations.
I have a basement and a place to hang up on myself, so gotta do something.
And the kidnappees.
But yeah, that's why the lock is on the outside. Okay, Holly?
Yeah.
That's why it's there. But so I started keeping this list in about March, and I've watched close to 200 movies, and like I said, about 60 of them have been 22s, and most of them are not. They're not great, but the big studio ones have been better than average. I will admit this year, better than average. But there have been a couple of digging the sand and find some gems things. Like I don't know if has anybody watched Hellbender?
Mhm.
Not yet,
No.
no.
Okay, I loved Hellbender. I loved it. It's really low budget. I think the whole movie was made for about $8. But it was fantastic. But then there's been some bigger things like The Hatching. Has anyone seen The Hatching?
No, the last new release I saw was The Black Phone, which just came out in Friday.
Oh, you
yeah.
bastard! You bastard! You're
Is it
ahead of me.
good?
Damn it!
It was pretty
Uh-oh.
good. Like I know a lot of people have been like talking about like the children based horror movies and ranking it pretty highly up there with like chapter 1. I don't know if I would
was
rank
gonna
it
say
that.
why. Yeah.
I wouldn't rank it that highly. I'd probably put it in like the B- range for grade, but like for the kid centric movies, I'm still going back to like The Boy Behind the Door and Tigers Are Not Afraid as like the pinnacle of that specific subgenre.
Okay. I'll give you that. I would personally go, and granted now, keep in mind, I'm almost 50, so
Mhm.
I've been like digesting Stephen King for a long time. So chapter 1 for me is just beyond solid. I want to see Black Phone. Joe Hill, Stephen King's kid, obviously. I'm guessing there's going to be some things in it I'm just going to absolutely love. Going for the kid-centric things, see The Hatching.
Okay.
The Hatching is... oh, man. It is... I'm not going to call it solid. It's beyond solid. It's... and, like... I don't want to spoil anything, but, like, getting to the end... whew, I mean, it's one of those movies where it's like it tells you what it's going to do, and then it doesn't do it at the end. And it's like, well, why did you do that to me? But at the same time, I kind of like it. So definitely see that one. There's been so much this year. I mean, between Firestarter, which was, feel free to edit this, something of a disappointment. Well,
I expected that, to be honest.
Yeah, I've heard.
Well, and again, I've got a 50-year history with Stephen King, so I was really hoping for something better, and that movie was not very good.
Well, I feel like a lot of people will give it a chance, if only because of John Carpenter scoring the movie.
Mhm.
Well, yes, I think you're probably right. I'm not sure if anybody's seen Piggy. Anybody seen Piggy?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
You saw it?
Yeah.
I liked Piggy. For being like a kind of a Sundance, independent film festival circuit movie, really pretty solid. The end is something of a shock. I'm not sure you'd necessarily see it coming. Because it jumps back and forth a whole bunch of times. I think I know what's happening. Oh no, it's not. Okay, now I think I know what's happening. Nope, it's not. So I mean, it defied a lot of the prescripts and the genre stuff that like you think is supposed to happen. So that one was pretty fun. It pisses me off that you've seen Black Phone and I haven't. Damn it! It was supposed to be Monday, but like the week got away from me. But yeah. And then has anybody seen Crimes of the Future?
Yep.
No, I heard that's good, but I haven't seen it. I heard it's pretty good.
This game, we're not doing so well at
Yeah.
We need to go on a big.
Well, and T is clearly fucking winning. So like, damn it! All right, so I got out my game. Okay, challenge accepted. Gauntlet thrown down.
Sounds good.
All right.
You know what we're doing next week is Alamo Draft House does Terror Tuesdays, and they're doing Return of the Living Dead, San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So we're going
fuck.
to see.
And this place is swank.
So we're going to see Return of the Living Dead on the big screen for their Terror Tuesday next week. We got.
They will
tickets.
bring you dinner to your
Oh yeah,
seat.
booze, food. Yeah.
By the time you leave there drunk,
Oh,
Yes, it's one of my
Shit.
favorites.
you already
It's one of my favorites.
you spent
Four.
like $100 at the end of a
Oh yeah, it's a
movie.
$10 movie that you spend $100 with like the food and the drink, of
Mhm.
course.
They bring you
but it's
PBRs
worth
to
it.
your seats.
It's worth it.
Oh, 4 or 5 years ago, my wife and I, there was a local theater, and it was a shithole. For the record, it was just a shithole that was going to put Return of the Living Dead on 35 millimeter.
Ooh.
So, I mean, like, that was just like instant nipples hard. I have to go.
Uh-huh.
Let's rock this. So we're standing in line after having dinner and having a couple of cocktails. So, we're kind of already tuned up, whatever else. And they come out and they're like, hey, our 75-year-old projector broke. So we can't show it in 35 millimeter, but we will show it to you on Blu-ray. And it was like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm here. I'm already drunk. What the fuck? I don't care.
Yeah.
So we go inside this theater, and this theater doesn't even have like theater style seats. It's a bunch of like lounge chairs and couches, things that people have clearly probably had sex on. It's just like the nastiest furniture. So I was like, okay, so we sit down, and so before the movie starts, they have a local artist come out, and she replayed Trash's Strip Show, scene by scene by scene,
awesome.
like all.
Wait, did
all the way?
Did she use like
yes.
a screwdriver and like a drill to make the sparks? To make sparks?
There were no sparks, but I can tell you that I went to see a movie and I ended up seeing a woman completely naked in real life.
Yeah,
all kinds of. And it was the most awesome thing ever. It was like this was totally worth like $85 I paid for tickets to this movie. It was totally worth it. Like, okay. Yeah. Like,
I went to it was a Halloween punk show in Oakland. This was years ago. And that was the exact same pre-show that was going on. This gorgeous girl, doing that that strip. But she had these hardware tools, they were kind of smallish because she was trying to make sparks and she was making sparks to go with, the thing. And it was sexy.
I was impressed. Let's just put it that way. I was definitely impressed. But then we got to see it, and it was on Blu-ray, and I got some popcorn, so I was happy. I just, whatever. Yeah, no, it was outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
All right, man. We're at the hour and 35-minute mark. Goodness.
Yeah.
Joe's already like, hey, we're gonna have some dinner soon. But
absolutely.
John's coming right back, so we can't say goodbye without him. But we can talk a little bit about what movie we're reviewing next.
Absolutely. So next week, we're kind of going back to our aquaphobia roots with a creature feature. We have The Host, released in 2006, directed by Bong Joon-ho, who also did Parasite and a few other pretty marquee Korean flicks. This is one I saw fairly early on. Hadn't seen it in a long time. We rewatched it after The Beach House last night, and I forgot just how fucking good this movie is. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Which one?
The Host.
Yes.
And there's so many
really,
movies named the same that it's so hard to find information about it. That doesn't mean you have to sift through a bunch of other crappy movies.
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be
that is
one other
100%
good one,
true.
Doesn't compare. And this movie, let's not
that's
get into it. We'll save it for that review.
Well, that's the hard part, though. You're right, Holly. Finding the new horror movie called The Sparkly Gemini Dildo. It's okay, that's a new horror movie, but no one's ever going to reuse that, right? So, yeah, the newer stuff versus the older stuff, there's such a void. There's such just like a washing of things, and it's you can't find. I mean, even things anything titled. This is Grindhouse Zombie talking now. Anything titled Of the Dead, it's well, there's 750 possibilities.
Even today.
So it's
I was trying to look up The Beyond, but Lucio Fulci's The Beyond, which I used to have on DVD, I don't have it anymore. And I just was randomly thinking, I haven't watched a really dark, creepy Lucio Fulci in a long time. I'm just in the mood. I'm alone. It's foggy out. But trying to find it, there was 1,000 The Beyonds, beyond. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, obviously, I'm going to have to put in now the director. But I could not find it. It's too weird and obscure, and I'd have to buy it again probably. But anyway, that was just along that note is, if you're finding Of the Dead or The Host, The Parasite, the whatever, all those certain names, Alien, the word alien,
or The Beach House.
Oh, yeah, The Beach House! Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, there's four that will give it. Yep.
20 minutes we watched The Beach House.
maybe
sea creature and it's kind of creepy. like,
I had to like
which
tell her
house?
like
She's
basically
like,
the
not
whole movie
that
plot.
one, not that one, no, not that one.
We watched-
Maybe that's why the reviews were so bad for this one. They were
Oh,
watching
yeah,
the
maybe
wrong
they're watching
movie.
The wrong movie.
That's it.
And not only that, but there are 4 of the Beach House movies made within a 3-year period. They all
Damn.
came out at the
Yep.
same
One of them's got
time.
Sandra Bullock in it.
Right, like the teen love
Oh,
story.
God.
Or whatever. I was like, no,
No.
the coming of age
No,
on the beach. No,
that's the one we watched for 20 minutes. You're like, I don't think that girl was that young.
Or trying to find that new movie X.
Oh my
Like,
god.
try finding. A
Oh,
movie
shit,
called
yeah.
X.
That's a
It's like talk about shooting yourself in the foot by naming your movie X. It's like really.
I get it really fits with the project, but Jesus.
Right,
yeah.
right.
X,
I had
double
an
X,
issue
triple
when I was
X.
looking to stream Mad Movie, which is kind of like The Cabin in the Woods if it was made as like a voyeuristic porno, essentially, is the only way to describe it. Because, yeah, trying to find anything on that movie was also impossible with movie in the actual title.
Well, well, and that's where we are as streamers. It's like it's a fucking gauntlet.
We play.
And you're running it no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to Holly's point, you might get 20 minutes of something that you thought wasn't the movie that you were watching.
Incidentally, are you guys hearing my
Not-
upstairs neighbor? That's our angriest subscriber.
Oh, yeah.
The walls are so thin here in the ceiling that they were like stomping around when they're angry.
Oh, doing the mad stomp. Yeah. Well, we've all done that, haven't we? Shut the fuck up, please.
We're
Yeah,
recording.
we've all done that.
Mhm. Well, at least they're not showing us their cat's asshole, so,
You know what? I didn't mind that one bit.
It was one time. One time. God.
That kitty had something to say, damn it.
That was super cute.
Mhm.
Pay attention to me. Thank you.
It's like, Dad, why am I not on this?
Well, I'll tell you what. If you follow either Joe Blow or the nightclub, you will hear a lot of, "Oh, there's the cat's asshole," because the cat just does that. So, not my fault.
Mhm.
It's my wife's cat. It's not even my damn cat. It's my wife's cat. And just comes down here. I'm gonna fuck with you because I can.
It's your
So,
cat now.
yeah.
She's a
it pretty much is. Yeah. Yeah, they're like kids. You marry into
Yep.
it. It just happens. Yep. Hell
The
yeah.
cat was judging you, like, what are you doing down there?
Who are these people?
Yeah.
Who are these people? Yeah.
Mhm.
They can look at my
Yeah.
asshole.
Why are you enjoying your life all by yourself? You don't get to do that. No. Mm-mm. No, you have to suffer like the rest of us. Damn it. Yep. That's that cat. That's that cat.
All right. Well, I think that will just about wrap it up for us here tonight on Handle with Scare. So if you guys are looking to keep in contact with everything going on with the podcast, you can find all of our video content on YouTube at Handle with Scare Pod. You can follow us over on Twitter. You can find all of our watch party information as well as episode releases at Handle with Scare. And of course, you can contact us via email if you have any questions or film suggestions or phobia suggestions, for that matter, at handlewithscarepod@gmail.com. With that being said, this has been episode number 66, talking all about the Beach House. I've been your host, Only Drunk, joined by the full motley crew here of John, Morticia, Holly Hooge, and Zombie Grindhouse. And of course, we'll see you back next week when we're talking all about a more unconventional monster movie in the host. We'll see you next week.